Good afternoon. Good afternoon, White Plains. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to just wait a couple of seconds and let folks jump in. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm sorry, I know Governor Cuomo is still speaking right now. Feel free to jump off and keep listening to him, and you can check back in with us at a time that's convenient for you. Remember, all of these community updates will stay on Facebook, and they'll also be posted on the district's website. Good afternoon. MAS is in the house. Good afternoon, Ms. McGuire. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Thanks for taking the time. Happy Hanukkah for those in our White Plains City School District community who are celebrating. Back by popular demand, over the next couple of weeks, we'll have some very special read-alouds coming up for our Tigers. Hopefully you'll enjoy that. Moms and dads, they'll stay up too, so if you need to catch an extra 30 or 45 minutes at some point in time, maybe you can have the kids listen to a read-aloud. I hope it's enjoyable. Good afternoon, everybody. We have great questions today that were sent in. Remember, you can always send your questions in to us at questions.wpcsd.k12.ny.us. We always appreciate the feedback that we're receiving from our families. I do want to share with you, good afternoon, Stacy. I do want to share with you, and this is important. Right now, we have at least three members that I'm aware of within the White Plains City School District community who are in the hospital struggling with COVID-19. I share that with you because remember, in your comments that you make online, family members of those people or those individuals themselves may be reading them. We have done an amazing job in our community spreading kindness and love and support. Please continue to do that. Please remember that we have many folks and families in our community who are suffering right now at varying levels. Some of you watching, without a doubt. And just keep that in your mind. I know that there's also a lot of frustration. I know that there's a great deal of fatigue. But do your best, please, to be reminded that many in our community are struggling, and we need to continue to pull together and work together to move through the challenges that we're facing right now. We will. We did in the past. We'll do it again. I'm confident in that. But I do share that with you just to remind you, and also to ask for your thoughts and if inclined, your prayers for those families who are struggling right now with illness. The holidays are a tough time. In the best case scenario, they're a stressful time for many. We know that many in our community are experiencing those difficulties. Please reach out to us if you're having any problems that we can help with, or even if you're having any problems and you just don't know where to reach out. We'll do our best to connect you with folks who can help. That's important to remember. If you know somebody, a neighbor, a family member who's struggling, please reach out. Don't let folks suffer in silence, and we're here to be as supportive as we possibly can for everyone in our community. So thanks for that, and thanks for everything you've been doing. I also want to give another big thank you and shout out to all of our healthcare professionals, first responders, and everybody who's back. They've never left the field, but they're back on the field right now, doing the best they can. For our teachers, our administrators, our support staff, you are, in my mind, you're all heroes, and I'm not just blowing smoke. You're working in very uncertain scenarios all the time and doing your best to support our kids. Thank you for that as well. Moms and dads, I know you're struggling too, and we're going to keep trying our very best to be as supportive as we can and stable as we can for you moving forward as well. So let me get right in, jump right into the questions, and they're great ones. Some of you maybe have asked questions that they were asked several times, and so what I did was we blended them together. So hopefully you'll hear all of the questions that you were seeking answers to in this update. If you don't, just send an email or feel free to reach out to me in the office. We're happy to help in any way that we can. And answering questions is hopefully very helpful. So the first one, I have a little one who goes in person on Thursdays and Fridays. On a good day, there are fewer kids in that class. My question is, why do full remote children get to choose when they like to return to school? If they choose full remote in January, that's it. You should be out until the end of the school year like New York City is doing. I feel like we're punishing kids because we're waiting for students to switch from full remote to hybrid. To that question, we are working with parents and guardians to ask them to please make a decision if they want to be full remote, to try and stick to that full remote decision for a marking period or a trimester. But we also know that situations arise and parents need to make adjustments. We are looking again at classrooms and seeing if there are areas that we can bring more children back more often in the hybrid model, even at the elementary level. I know if you watched this week's reopening committee, you saw that we're making progress in that area in some ways for middle school and high school. We're going to be looking to do the same in elementary school. We cannot tell people that they cannot come back in hybrid. I know that that's what folks are being told in New York City. There will likely be some type of a challenge to that. I can't speak for New York City, but I can tell you that that's not been the position that we've taken here. The next question, I'm hoping that in discussions about getting the younger children back in more days in person, just like we're looking at the high school and middle school. Yes, we are looking at that as well, and bringing as many children back as often as we can. And I think you're going to hear that echoed really often, right? We want our children back in school as often as possible. We want them to be safe, but we want them back in school as often as possible. We agree. We're in 100% agreement. What information can the school district provide to families with children who have to quarantine based on the precautions we're taking to be safe in school? Anybody who's been asked to quarantine or isolate, if you don't have your questions answered, because I don't think there's probably more specificity in this, please reach out to your child's nurse, or you can reach out to us or Nurse Rasiopo, or you can reach out to me, and we'll try and answer any questions that you might have related to quarantine. If the district decides to remain closed or closes again in the future, will any consideration be given to having special education and or younger elementary students return back to the buildings? Several districts, while trying to reduce exposure and capacity, have both populations return as they are considered most in need of in-person instruction. Thanks for your question. If the district needed to move into full remote, yes, we are looking at ways to be able to serve the most vulnerable populations of our students as quickly as possible, or to not interrupt their in-person instruction if possible as well. So we are, in fact, we're having conversations about how we would be able to approach that, but again, depends on the circumstances of what precipitates the move to full remote, which I'll talk a little bit about in the next upcoming questions. No disrespect, but we keep hearing we are going to reopen Monday, and not sure what's going to be different in the surrounding communities or our community on Monday to allow us to reopen and welcome students. Just wondering why we think we can reopen Monday and not be confronted with closing again on Tuesday, Wednesday, or later in the week. Well, thanks for your question. No disrespect at all. We are going to be welcoming children back on Monday the 14th for in-person hybrid instruction. That's happening. There are going to be some schools, and you may already know about them because you received updates, that are still being impacted by quarantine. There are going to be some classes that are still being impacted by quarantine in some schools, but by and large, the school district will be welcoming our children back on Monday the 14th. What is going to be different in the communities, its surrounding communities, on Monday? That I don't know. Likely it's not going to be different in a positive way. You'll probably see increased numbers as we move through the weekend. The governor was just talking about the likelihood that additional micro clusters will be identified on Monday. But remember, that doesn't mean we can't operate in-person hybrid instruction. It just means there are additional steps that we'll need to take, including testing, screening testing, to be able to operate in person. So I don't think that there will necessarily be something different in our surrounding communities, but on Monday, I know that we'll have folks who are coming out of quarantine, we'll have children who are coming out of quarantine, we'll be in a position to be able to come back and offer in-person hybrid instruction. Why did teachers receive the email regarding school closing on Monday between 1 and 1:30 p.m.? And why did the email to the teachers specifically state that an email would go out to families at 5 p.m.? Why are the parents and taxpayers the last to know? Doesn't sound fair or respectful. not considerate to send that email out once all offices were closed for the weekend and there was no one to speak with? I appreciate the question. Faculty, staff members were notified last week on Friday afternoon that we would be moving to full remote for the following week. Thereafter, we prepared the updates and all the information to send out to our families. We set that time for 5 p.m. at the end of, typically at the end of a typical workday, probably nobody's typical workday. There was no malice in that. That was just the time that was sent out. Truthfully, as many of you know, as soon as the notice went out to faculty and staff members, everybody in the community knew as well. I know I already started answering questions probably a couple minutes after that. Also, the offices don't, while they close physically, it's not as if we're not available. So I know, for instance, I was talking with parents and guardians all weekend long and answering questions. So there really wasn't any, attempt there to try and be nefarious. I'm sorry if that appeared that way, but that wasn't the case at all. Please explain why the SAT scheduled to be held at White Plains High School was canceled on Saturday, and what are the rules for canceling it again, so I can decide if White Plains High School is the right place for my child to register to take the SAT. Obviously, this cancellation places our students at a significant disadvantage. Yes, sorry about that cancellation. That was because we didn't have enough proctors to be able to cover the administration of the assessment. How much of the decision to close was made based on pure data, the number of positive cases, fire break, and how much was the result of the teachers union who had been pushing for a post-holiday pause and will most likely push for the same after the holiday break? The district closed unexpectedly before the holidays and again after the holidays before being declared a yellow or an orange zone. We are only at 25% occupancy as it is. We have not had any microcluster outbreaks because we are 6 feet apart and wearing a mask, but yet we keep reverting back to fully remote after being told repeatedly that we are staying as is, 1 day a week in person, high school, 2 days elementary school. The districts that have reverted back to hybrid after the holidays have progressed further along than we had. There are districts that had 3 phases. These districts went to 5 days. Basically, the rest of the question is, as a parent in the district, I just want to have some more transparency for closures based on hard data, the number of positive cases, or due to unavailable teaching staff. So let me go way back to the first part of this question. The decision to move to full remote this week had absolutely nothing to do with any, and no disrespect of course, but nothing to do with any union or professional association requests. It had everything to do with our ability to operate effectively and healthy and safely with our children and our faculty and staff members. I made that decision. That was my decision. I stand by it. I believe that decision allowed us to have a fire break this week in terms of the number of positive cases, and you see that we still have positive cases, but we didn't have additional quarantines this week, fortunately, that impacted our schooling. So no, there was no reason other than what was transpiring at the time, and what was transpiring at the time is we had a lot of folks who were being rounded up during contact tracing. We had buildings that were being closed down, and I saw the writing on the wall that it was going to continue throughout the weekend, which it did. We made the decision to go full remote, and we're making the decision to come back hybrid on Monday, as we had indicated. If there is any additional information that you might like, I'd be happy to give it to you. The question to me is almost like one of those questions, how many inches of snow does it take to close school? 3 feet of snow closes school, but a quarter of an inch can close school too, depending upon the circumstances that are happening at the time. Last week, the number of cases that we were dealing with and the number of quarantines that we were dealing with definitely necessitated that we make a decision and move us to remote. And that's where we are. It's not a holiday pause. There's not a post-holiday pause. I'm not planning for a post-holiday pause following the upcoming winter holidays. We have to assess the situation based on what we see. Many of you see that in Orange County, you have a number of school districts that have had to go full remote, and that's because of the numbers that they're experiencing in their communities. We're going to have to continue to deal with that as we move forward as well. And as I mentioned on Monday, if we do get declared as part of a microcluster, we're ready to deal with that and move through that. But again, every day we are trying, everybody in the school district is trying to make sure that we're providing the best possible educational experience we can for our children in a pandemic with all of the other requirements that are on the table, including the rising numbers of COVID-19 in our present area. So thanks for that question. Just a suggestion, I am currently in my second round of quarantine due to direct exposures. I think it would be advisable to let the community know that remote learning is sometimes a last resort when staffing is an issue because teachers are out for an extended stated required quarantines. And that's absolutely true. Faculty and staff members in quarantine, that impacts our ability to deliver instruction, particularly if folks are sick. If they're quarantined but they're not symptomatic, they're not sick, we're able to conduct remote learning opportunities from home, fortunately. But again, lots of unique situations because these are all individual cases. What's the policy on teachers teaching from home when quarantined? Some appear to teach when quarantined, while others do not. Despite whether being in person or remote, children need to learn. It appears some teachers choose to teach from home, others do not. If we are quarantining out of abundance of caution, teachers aren't actually sick, should they be teaching? The answer is absolutely. If we are quarantined, teachers are teaching from home, and I want to just remind everyone, I'm reading these questions as they've been submitted, but many of the questions that are submitted are really based on the questioner's individual experiences or maybe a smaller group. It's not necessarily the experience of all, and I know you know that, but I think it's important to call attention to it. If you're having difficulty with regard to instruction during a remote learning period, please reach out to the school, to the child's teacher, to try and ascertain what in fact is happening. But yes, there should be instruction taking place even during periods of time when we're in full remote or in quarantine. I'd like to know why the district plans to return to in-person learning on Monday when the number of COVID cases continues to rise in White Plains, including students and staff. Wouldn't it be better to just pause and wait until the new year? So again, thank you for your question. Other side now, right? The questioner. We believe that we need to do everything we possibly can to get our children into our facilities, learning in our facilities as often as possible, and make sure that we're attending to health safety. If there was a reason from a health safety standpoint that we weren't able to do that, we wouldn't. But when we can, we're going to, and we believe that that's in the best interest of our children. From my understanding, staff are awaiting results or quarantining with their own children are not allowed to work from home, must take sick days, hence teachers being absent on multiple days. Why won't the district allow teachers to quarantine due to reasons outside of the district to teach from home so they can give our kids their education? It's a great question. It's, as everything else, much more complicated and complex legal question, actually, because of the way the ability to work from home is overlaid onto public education. So the goal is to be able to teach children in school, right, as often as possible. If you're home and you're quarantining, you can work from home and teach remotely. If you're home for another reason and you have to take a sick day, say, you're not working, so you wouldn't be teaching from home either. We know that that's a challenge. We're trying to work out a way to ameliorate it. We don't have an answer for it right now, but we definitely understand that that's a challenge. I will say this though, and again, thank you to our teachers and to our support staff and to our administrators for continuing to work through this and try and figure out ways to support our students. I will tell you there are a number of teachers who, even when they were home sick, they were still working and conducting classes remotely. So, it really depends. It's a larger district, lots of teachers, lots of experiences, but I do understand the question, and we are looking for ways to work through it and support our faculty and staff members. You have stated that health and safety for students and staff is your number one priority. Why not keep everyone safe by allowing them the option to stay at home? If that was an option, we would certainly explore it, but it's not. We need to do as much as we can to support our children in our facilities as often as possible. That's the goal. That's always been the goal. If it comes down to health and safety, certainly we would make an adjustment, but that is what we're attempting to try and do every day. Thank you for your question. Why have students return to school for 8 days to potentially have students and staff quarantine right before the holidays? Why not be proactive and extend the remote learning until mid-January to ensure the safety of all students, staff, and community members? This year has been hard enough for all to then potentially spend the holidays sick or quarantined by sending people back next week. I appreciate the question, certainly understand and respect the position, but I think I've answered just in terms of delivering instruction in our facilities. We want to be able to do that as often as possible. Certainly people make their own decisions, and if parents and guardians feel that they wish to keep their child out because they don't want to potentially be impacted over the holidays, certainly they make those decisions. Individuals make those decisions every day. In terms of our approach district-wide, we want to try and get our children into the facilities as often as possible. Why are some classrooms, younger kids, kindergarten and 1, having lunch in their classrooms while older kids have lunch in the cafeteria? Isn't it better for all children to be contained eating in their classroom? Seems like many more people need to quarantine due to the cafeteria exposure. Yeah, the cafeteria exposure is a problem. We met with the county executive this week, we met with the county health department this week, and we have a workaround, or not a workaround, but a work through to that problem so that we don't have as many children getting swept up in contact tracing when positive cases are identified and cafeterias have been used. Cafeterias, sometimes eating in the classroom is possible, sometimes it's not. So we do have a plan now to approach our cafeterias to hopefully reduce the number of children or even adults who get caught up in a contact trace in the cafeteria. Thank you for that question. At what point will it be determined if it's just too much of the curriculum has been skipped or not absorbed during hybrid learning? Is it ever a possibility to keep the entire student body back for next year in the current grade level that they're in? We're currently in December, and my son is still working on curriculum from the previous grade. That's very concerning. That says that's very concerning in the question. So we're not considering right now holding everybody back. We are going to work through this pandemic. We are then going to figure out what we need to do to support children individually if they have in fact developed gaps or if there are issues related to their curricular advancement and development. We're doing that now. Dependent upon what the children are experiencing. I would suggest to this questioner, if you haven't already, definitely reach out to your child's teacher and talk about this concern specific to your child. And there might be some more information, some more support that we can help with. Does a school district plan to have hybrid students back in school in January? Yes. Why hybrid students have gym inside, not outside? Does the school plan to have more outdoor activities year-round? If we can take advantage of being outside, we absolutely will. Can students of all grades have their lunches in their classrooms, not the cafeteria? I just touched on that, I believe. Can windows be always open in the classroom, or at least most of the day? We can dress our kids up. Yeah, windows can be cracked open, and the HVAC systems in our classrooms pull in fresh air from outside and circulate that through the rooms as well. What was the reasoning and the methodology behind going full remote this week for all schools versus the schools that were directly impacted? Some of the elementary schools have minimal cases, so wasn't this decision a knee-jerk reaction and going against the plan of having kids in school in person more often? It wasn't. I know it can definitely seem like that dependent upon where your vantage point is in the school district. My vantage point from seeing the entire district all at one time, and all of the cases that were popping up, even if it were only a couple or a few, the decision was made again in an attempt to make sure that we put a fire break or a stop, I've said, in between of the cases that we were seeing. And my hope is now, beginning on Monday, we'll be able to come back in, move through smoothly, or as smooth as possible, into the winter holiday recess and then beyond. Why are you not reevaluating the hybrid model? We are in our 4th month and it's not working. The model is not providing the education these kids are entitled to, not to mention it's exhausting on the teachers, and it truly shows. In a previous Q&A session, you mentioned to bring concerns to our individual teacher and administration. However, this is a district-wide question. Other school districts have made the switch to full 5 days. Why are we not doing more to make this happen? Thanks for the question. We are constantly evaluating the hybrid model and the experiences that we're learning from our parents, our guardians, our students, teachers, administrators. We do that almost weekly at our reopening committee meetings. We do address areas that we're not achieving the desired result, and we try and do that in a targeted fashion. In terms of bringing all children in every day, that's just not something that we're able to do at the moment. And that's important. And I've been told by folks that, a lot of school districts are doing that, and we investigate and try and figure it out. If they are doing it, how are they doing it? And what we find many instances is that there's half days involved, or that there are rotating schedules involved, or that there was a declining enrollment and additional facilities were there. So there were a lot of factors. At the moment, we are unable to achieve that, but we are working toward that end result of getting all of our kids back in. Excuse me. Have you surveyed the parents to get their feedback on the hybrid model and what's working and not working? Currently, there are so many parents paying out of pocket for tutors and therapists because the setup is truly destroying our children. Thanks for your thoughts and for your question. We do take feedback from parents constantly. And as hard as it may be for this questioner to believe, we've had parents say that, hey, given the current set of circumstances, my child is doing just fine. We've had other parents on the other side saying this is terrible, it does not work for my child. So it really runs the gamut. You know that every child is different and every experience is different. And we're trying to meet everybody where they are and support them where we can. Why is the district not lining up substitute teachers in the event a teacher or staff member needs to quarantine? District has plenty of funds in reserve, so why not put it to good use? We are lining up substitutes in every possible way we can. We have a great pool of building substitutes who have been doing a tremendous job. Thank you to all of you. And the reality of the situation is there are a lot of people who are out. There are a lot of people who are sick. There's a lot of need for substitutes. There's always a dearth of substitutes, even pre-pandemic. And while we do have, many substitutes on our lists, it becomes difficult to be able to get daily subs, and we struggle with that every day. But when we're able to, we have them, and we're always looking for more. I know some parents and guardians were interested in possibly becoming substitutes. Please feel free to reach out, go to the district's website in the employment section. The information on how to do that's right there. We welcome new substitutes all the time, so we'd be happy to welcome more, and I appreciate the question. When looking at the number of COVID-positive cases, do the numbers include hospitals? If so, are you also factoring this into your decisions, as hospital numbers will skew the figures? We're not, though the state is. They're utilizing hospitalization rates now, and that will be part of the overarching microcluster determination factor. Please provide the specific numbers of sick that lead to the decision to close a district. In other words, what percentage of faculty staff was sick and unable to physically teach? So thanks for your question. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. Hundreds of people were quarantined, and that impacted our ability to provide continuity of instruction in the buildings. In fact, at Highlands, Highlands is still going to need to be remote next week, because those same people who were quarantined last Friday are still quarantined. So it's important to understand that while we're trying to do our very best to mitigate COVID-19 in our facilities, it's getting in. And when it gets in, we have to take the approach to make sure that we're contact tracing appropriately. And that involves quarantining, and that is a major disruption to our families. That's why we continue to request, and please request, that folks do not come to our facilities or send their children to our facilities if they have illness in the home or are experiencing some type of illness. That will go a long way to trying to keep positive cases out of the buildings insofar as we can. Please let us know what efforts are underway to increase the level of engagement for students at the high school specifically. The one person, yes. So we are bringing more children back at the high school and middle school levels. We're looking to be able to continue to do that. If we can do it at the elementary, we will. And as more space becomes available and we're able to navigate through that, we will bring more children back. If you want to learn more about that, you can also watch this week's reopening committee meeting where the principals were discussing their progress as well. I understand you're working with the union and the parents, but who are you trying to please the most? I know that before Thanksgiving, the unions were asking for a switch to full remote, being fearful of the impact of COVID cases rising, and you had catered to their request. What about the kids and their needs? These children are struggling, and many have lost family members. In some situations, being in class is the only time children are interacting with other children. It's a safe environment for them, and going full remote when school cases are low is a huge concern. I thank you for your question. This is another opportunity, I think, to reinforce this point. It's not about making, let me just say this, and I know this, by the way, and you're all going to shake your head. I'm not making anybody happy. And I know that. This is one of those situations where, regardless of the decision that I make, there is going to be a sector of the community, of the folks who I serve, that are displeased. Been that way for 9 months. And I understand that. Trying to figure out how to achieve that balance and do the best thing for our kids in every given moment is the task. That's the challenge, that's the charge. So it's not about making the union happy. It's not about making parents happy, although I love to make everybody happy. The decisions that are being made based on what I know I need to be able to do, and also how best can I serve our children. So I do appreciate the question, but unfortunately, the decisions that I'm making aren't about necessarily making folks happy. I love when they are happy, but they're about how best can my decisions serve our children and our community. So hopefully that goes a little bit into answering your question. We need to have our kids in class. That's the important piece. But they also need to be healthy, and I also need to be able to support our faculty and staff members and our administrators so that they can deliver the instruction in class. Looking at the recent COVID cases within the White Plains City School District, based on the COVID report from New York State, there have been a total of 36 cases between 5 elementary schools. The efforts of the teachers and staff have done great and a tireless job in mitigating the cases. Yet the high school alone has 32 cases, and you want to open 4 days for those failing. For those failing. Why are we not using this tactic for elementary schools? Elementary is the critical foundation for a child's education. Yes, as I mentioned, we are looking at ways to be able to bring more children back more often in the elementary schools as well. We started out at the upper grades, and we're working our way back. Remember, upper grades have fewer in-person interactions on a weekly basis as it is. Figured that would be the equitable way to work and work backwards. Thank you for your question. Though I'm sure graduation seems far off, with all that you're dealing with right now, I'm hoping that some pre-planning is being done for the June graduation. As a nurse, I know that things will be improving, but not back to normal. There is no reason that with this much time to plan an outdoor graduation, perhaps split into smaller groups. Last year was understandable, as there was not sufficient time to plan, but this year there should be a committee working on this beginning now. Also wondering if sports that were pushed to spring are still scheduled to occur. Thanks for your question. We are thinking about graduation as well as other events that take place not only at the latter end of this academic year, but even into next year. And we do hope to be able to have an in-person commencement celebration, even if it needs to be different than we typically do at the county center. So yes, thank you for that question. We are looking and working on that, and I'm confident that we will be able to have a celebration of some sort. Might not be exactly the same, but definitely will be different than we were last year. With regard to sports, Section 1 just came out with an announcement moments before I came on with you. There has been no movement in terms of the so-called high-risk sports. They've still been pushed off, have not been authorized. We just finished up a fantastic fall season. We're looking forward to winter sports that are going to be starting after the winter recess, and our coaches right now are looking at opportunities to offer off-season training and conditioning opportunities for our student athletes as well. So all of that is in the works. I don't know, though, necessarily what the fate of sports like, for instance, basketball and wrestling will be in the winter. I suspect they will probably be pushed off, if not postponed indefinitely for the year, unfortunately. And that concludes the questions that I have written here. I will go back into the feed right now and see if I can answer any additional questions. And I want to thank you all for your questions. I hope that was helpful. We'll keep doing questions and answers. We'll keep doing updates, and certainly if Monday brings with it any additional news related to microclusters, we'll get that out to you. Thanks, Dina. Good afternoon, Councilman. Hi, Max. Email is confusing. First says remote for all students, but post wrote is not fully remote. per the bulleted note. I think that email, I'd have to take a look at it, Max. I haven't seen it, but I haven't seen what you saw. But I think if you look, they're broken out by schools in that email. Feel free to give us a ring if you have any questions. Greenberg went remote due to staffing challenges. Do you feel that we will have adequate staffing on Monday to go hybrid again? Yeah, we think so, Merrill. Thanks, and kudos and credit to our faculty, staff, and administration. We have seen such a strong showing, and I just again I can't say enough about them. If we want our children to go back to school full time, we have to be responsible adults. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought that was a question. I agree with you though. Thank you very much. Yes, we need to make sure we're doing everything we can to keep other people and ourselves healthy and safe. I'm looking for questions. Thanks, everybody. Governor is saying that, I don't know if this is going to be a question, but I'll try. The governor is saying that the safest place for children is school. When will you re-examine the possibility of moving to more days in person? I think I probably answered that. Governor's saying that based on the numbers that we're not the safest place, or what the data points that they have in terms of spread transmission rates. Yes, schools are safe because we took a lot of steps, including decreased density. But it is also important to note that the governor did show that where you're seeing where you're seeing cases, I believe education was like the fourth, 1%, but still, because we're open. Great news to have kids in. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Joanne. Yes, school in person, hybrid learning on Monday. I think this looks like conversation. I think. Okay, here's a question. You said 32 positive to high school alone, and that was out of 400 hybrid students. I didn't say that. That was in a question. 32 positive cases. You can look at the dashboard. I don't remember it off the top of my head, and it certainly has changed since Friday. Hi, Sarah. How many times can or will a student be swabbed per year if rapid tests start in school? So we're trying to keep that to one time in a pool, and that's why we asked for consent. And let me talk about testing for a moment. If we do move into the zone, remember that by next now, rapid test is the test that's going to be supplied by the state of New York. That is the nasal swab, both sides of the nose, not all the way up, right here. In 15 minutes, you know if you have a positive or negative result. Yes, those tests have more false positives, but at the same time, this is a screening process, not a diagnostic process. And we did send home those consent forms, and we're asking for parents and guardians to please consider giving consent. Here's what's really important. You should know this. If you did not say yes for consent, we would never test your child. Okay, unless there was some kind of change that comes out and it's required, at a higher level than us. But please know we would never do that. So that's why we sent out the consent form. It is a simple process. Obviously the identity and the outcomes of the tests remain confidential, just like any other health situation. So if you would consider that would be great, and you can fill out that consent form for us. And again, if we do have to move into that testing process, we'll let you know. Definitely make sure that we are keeping close contact with you. All right, I think that's it. I think that's it for today. We'll be back next week. Make sure that we're keeping you up to date. Please feel free to reach out to me. You can always send an email. You can always call. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have that I can. Stay the course. Let's keep pushing forward. We are so far ahead, along from where we were in the spring. It's not great. I was talking to a mom yesterday. She said, Joe, it's just really hard. I know it is. But we can keep going forward. You know why? There's no other choice. We're going to keep pushing forward. So look for the positives. Enjoy this beautiful day. It's Friday. Reach out if we can help you. I'll see you next week. Read alouds are coming back. And have a great weekend. Stay healthy, stay safe, and stay WP proud. Thanks, everybody. Take care.